Welcome everybody to the Retro Horror Academy. My name is Daniel Richardson, and today we're going to be looking at the year in horror 1955. We got six people we're inducting into our Horror Hall of Fame, and we have 7 films from this year that we're going to be ranking. So let's get into it. First, we're talking about we got a new trend that we're seeing in horror at this point. The movie Cult of the Cobra comes out, and the poster features a young pinup girl who or model, and that starts the trend to put in, or not. It doesn't have a pinup model. It has a Faye Domergue, but that starts the trend of having pinups on the poster because guess what? Sex sells, and it took them until 1955 to figure that out. So, yeah, that one would kind of kickstart that whole trend, if you will. Alrighty, so without further ado, let's get into the Horror Hall of Fame and our inducting class of this year. First off, we have Ralph Bellamy, an American actor nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in the film The Awful Truth, but best known probably for His Girl Friday and The Wolfman. I guess a horror film that we didn't cover that he was in was Airhawks. However, on this show, we know him for, as I mentioned before, The Wolfman and The Ghost of Frankenstein. And yeah, solid actor. Definitely, he's on the list. Put him in there. So yeah, Ralph Bellamy, get in here. Second, we have Ingrid Bergman, Swedish actress, considered to be one of the most influential actresses of all time. Won 3 Academy Awards, 4 Golden Globes, and a BAFTA. Of course, the 2 big films she's known for is Casablanca and Joan of Arc. She's also been in 3 Hitchcock films, Spellbound, Notorious, and Under Capricorn. Of course, on this show, we know her from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She had such a presence to her, and yeah, anytime you get a chance to induct cinema royalty into your Horror Hall of Fame, because again, this is like the only horror film she did to my knowledge, but it's like, yeah, guess what? You're in. So yeah, and she was so good as Ivy in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. Get in here. Up next, Lon Chaney Jr. That's right, American actor, horror icon. He has portrayed not just the Wolfman, but Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and the Mummy. Of course, he was also the lead in the Inner Sanctum series that Universal pumped out. Of course, outside of horror, he was also well known for Of Mice and Men and High Noon. Of course, he is the son of a horror icon and fellow Hall of Famer Lon Chaney. Some films of his that we did not cover, horror films, include Pillow of Death. He did an episode of Tales of Tomorrow, the Frankenstein episode, actually. But on this show, we know him best for Man-Made Monster, The Wolfman, The Ghost of Frankenstein, The Mummy's Tomb, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Son of Dracula, Weird Woman, The Mummy's Ghost, The House of Frankenstein, The Mummy's Curse, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Bride of the Gorilla, and The Black Castle. Yeah, I mean, you can't have a Horror Hall of Fame and not have this guy in there. Again, his name is synonymous with the likes of Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff. He's from that era. So yeah, glad to finally get him on board. So there you have it. The next person we're inducting, Sam Katzman. He was an American producer and director, known for producing very low-budget genre movies, but they would always make a profit. Some films that he did horror-related that we did not cover: Lock Up Your Daughters, Black Dragons, Voodoo Man, Crazy Nights, Shadow of Chinatown, and The Rogue's Tavern. But on this channel, we know him for Invisible Ghost, Spooks Run Wild, The Corpse Vanishes, The Ape Man, and Return of the Ape Man. All those he produced. And yeah, I mean, again, this dude, he was Roger Corman before there was a Roger Corman, definitely knew how to stretch his dollar out, make things work, and he was very successful at it. And you know what? The fact that he specialized in, I guess not just other genres, but horror, there you go. He's definitely got a spot in the Horror Hall of Fame. Take it a drink. All right, so moving along now. Our 5th inductee to the Horror Hall of Fame, Hope I'm saying the name correctly. Mantan Moreland, an American actor and comedian. Some films that he did that we did not cover on here was Four Shall Die, Black Magic, and The Strange Case of Dr. Rex, or RX. I'm going to say it Rex, screw it. However, on this show, we know him as for being in King of the Zombies and Revenge of the Zombies. I'm kind of disappointed that he didn't do more. I assumed he would have done. I figured we would have covered a ton of his stuff, and maybe he just didn't do a lot of horror films. I don't know. Again, we did miss out on 3 of them there, but for whatever reason, I just figured we would have saw him, do a lot more. However, this is the 2 he did, and you know what? He's hilarious. And, there's going to be the obvious, he was a black actor in an era where, there wasn't a whole lot of mainstream black actors. And he was one of the few who kind of did do crossover with a white audience. But honestly, I just like him because I think he's hilarious. And yes, these are outdated jokes. And yes, it's definitely not for our current PC culture, but I'm sorry, funny is still funny, and Mantan was hilarious. I thought he did his part great. And so, yeah, as soon as I started doing this, I knew he would be in the Horror Hall of Fame. I was just like, I'm waiting for the time where it seems eligible that he can get in. So glad we can add him to the mix here. So Mantan Moreland, take your seat, man. You earned it. And I hope we see him more. I really do. I'm not sure. I don't look into the future in these things, if I can help it. So, anyways, our final inductee into the Horror Hall of Fame is Edgar G. Ullman, Austrian-American director. He was known for directing, B movies almost exclusively. In fact, he was known as the king of PRC because he did so many Poverty Row films. However, the funny thing was after he retired from directing, a lot of critics would go back and kind of reevaluate his work and realize that he was actually a really good director. He just, did a lot of low-budget movies. Of course, he's going to be best known for directing The Black Cat, overall. Some horror films that we did, or some horror adjacent films that he did that we did not cover on here, was Bluebeard and The Man from Planet X. However, on this show, I did not know this, I looked it up. He was actually a set designer on The Golem. But of course, he was the director of The Black Cat. And I'm a huge fan of The Black Cat, so obviously that's enough to get this guy in. So there you guys have it. That is our inducting class for 1955 into the Horror Hall of Fame. So everyone come on in, take your seat among the greats. So, we're moving on now. We got 7. That's right, 7 horror films from 1955 that we're going to be covering. So let's get into it, shall we? Excuse me, coming down from a cold. First up, at number 7, we have Creature with the Atomic Brain. So basically, this gangster breaks out of jail and teams up with this Nazi, or former Nazi, I guess, mad scientists who they team up together and start creating this atomic powered zombies and kind of getting revenge for this gangster. This film stars Richard Denning, which I'm becoming a huge Richard Denning fan after seeing him in Creature from Black Lagoon, and he's in a couple films on here. I think he's a really good actor, and just a name I did not know before I started doing this show. This is also written by another Horror Hall of Famer, Kurt Sidomak. We brought him in last time, actually. So, so this thing was released as the bottom half of the double feature with It Came From Beneath the Sea. Oh, I should also mention that new inductee into the Horror Hall of Fame, Sam Katzman, produced this film as well. So there you have it. Apparently, in one small town, this group of teachers got together and they tried to boycott and get this movie banned because they felt like the science in this movie, I'm doing quotations if you can't see, sorry, but the science in this movie was so blatantly ridiculous, and it would, quote, create fear and confusion in the minds of children. Glad these guys are trying to keep America safe. Thank you. Ridiculous. Anyways, so that happened. I guess, your movie isn't great until it starts getting banned by other people or whatever. So, there you go. This title, Creature with the Atomic Brain, would actually become a song. Would be the title of a song, sorry. And would actually be the name of a band as well. 2 separate bands there, the song title and band names. So, but there you go. People love these 50 B movie titles, I guess. So they are fun. So what can you say? First horror film to use squibs, which it's kind of crazy to see the evolution of cinema as I'm watching this stuff, and I feel like we're still kind of in an age where it's like I figure squibs would still be too, I don't know, too violent, I guess, for a mainstream audience. Of course, these are B, low budget, whatever, but I don't know. I forget what studio did this movie, but damn, it was released with it came from beneath the sea, so it's like it's got to be, what was that, Columbia, Warner Brothers? I don't know. That's a big budget thing, so even if it is on the lower half of that double billing, people are still seeing it. So I don't know. I guess apparently people weren't as. But I just kind of figured squibs would be a thing that would happen more in the '60s on a. But it is what it is. And yes, apparently, and I didn't notice it, but the director of this film, to help save money, he purposely made as few cuts as possible, which is why you get a lot of scenes of people kind of walking around before someone would enter the scene or exit. They just kind of linger a little bit. And then why you had more wide shots and static shots as opposed to just kind of cutting to each people talking or whatnot. So, again, I didn't notice it when I watched it, but, apparently if I ever do rewatch this again, yeah, we'll see if that's the case or not. So what do I think about this movie? It's all right. Again, I really like Richard Denning. The story itself, again, I'm afraid I'm gonna burn myself out because it's funny because it's like this is the atomic age era, right? And everybody's like, oh, it's so different now because we're introducing science fiction. And it's like, guys, mad science horror has been a thing since the 30s. Like I was burned out on this shit in the 40s, and we haven't left that yet. We're still doing it, and it's like, yeah, maybe we're putting the word atomic on everything, but it's like it's still the same thing. Like I don't know. So it's like. It's no different, but I will say I was never bored of this movie. Again, I think the performances were really solid, especially by Richard Denning. And I get the story itself's decent. I'm always down for a revenge flick, and so you see these different zombies show up to kill all these men that wronged the gangster or whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting twist on it. So yeah, I don't know. I liked it. It's got a 5.5 on IMDb, and yeah, that seems about right. So there you have it. Creature with the Atomic Brain, also known as Creature with the Atom Brain. I guess it just depends on which version you get, what it's called. So moving on, number 6, we have Cult of the Cobra. So basically, these American soldiers, while they're over in India, they come across this cult of Cult of the Cobra, and they shouldn't be seeing this ceremony, but they see it, and so they basically sick this woman who has the power to turn into a cobra to kill them one by one. Sorry. So anyways, this movie stars Faith Donahue. My God, I am in love with this woman. Just saw her for the first time, and she's in a couple movies this year, and instantly just smitten by her. Thought she does great in this movie. I don't think the writing's that good in this movie, but I think she did really good. Anyways, this thing was on a double feature with Revenge of the Creature, which is the sequel to Creature from Black Lagoon. Again, with this movie, it's something we've seen a million times before. It's the same tale, getting revenge. You do kind of have a different vibe with it, I guess. With it's a different thing. It's that instead of just using atomic or whatever, we're using magic. It's a cult with cobras and everything. So not necessarily fitting in with the atomic age, if you will, but still the same formula, still knocking them down one by one. I think for me personally, the thing that I did not like about this movie was we get this weird love triangle, and I'm noticing that's becoming a thing. In these, I don't know if it's just, it seems like we had this with Creature from Black Lagoon, even though the girl wasn't really interested in the bad guy in that, he was clearly interested in her, and it did create this tension between the three. And this is going to be a reoccurring theme a couple more times at least, and I'll get to it each time. But here, you got these two soldiers who are living together, they're roommates, and essentially they're banging the same chick, and they all know about it. But she's like, I'll make my decision, when you guys get back from, your next trip or whatever. And she does. She picks, the main guy. I'm sorry, I forget names in these things. I actually forget the actors who played it. I think Richard Long was the main guy, if I'm not mistaken. And then, the roommate who hooks up with the Cobra lady was Marshall Thompson, I think. But don't quote me on that. Either way, you got, you know, the girl picks the guy, the main guy. So the other guy kind of falls back on the Cobra lady. But he's just he has like the worst personality. He's a douchebag. He's just overly jealous, and they're not even dating. Just the way I mean, maybe that's a typical dude from the 50s. I don't know, but I honestly was just like, I don't like this guy. And he trying to figure out, like, why'd the girl leave me and pick the other guy, and why is this girl acting weird? It's like, because you're a douche. And it's just weird because, I don't know, at one point, it seems like Faith Domergue, who plays the Cobra lady, seemed like she was kind of into the main guy more. But then, like, out of nowhere, it's just like, oh, yeah, the script says I have to fall in love with this dick, so she does. And it's just, I don't know. I just wasn't buying it. I don't know. I wasn't big on that. And so that kind of, that knocked it down a few pegs for me as I'm watching this movie. And then, like I said, I guess we're supposed to feel sorry for this guy at the end, but I just don't. Because, again, he's a dick. Like, at one point, like, dude's dancing with his girl, and he goes and punches him out, and it's like, this is the 50s, and, like, everyone's sock bopping and dancing with each other. Like, dude, chill the fuck out. He wasn't, though. Anyways, yeah, this thing has a 5.8 on IMDb, and I don't know. I guess I'll kind of go with that one. Seems like it's kind of a shame that it's a little higher than the previous movie, but it is what it is. So anyways, we'll move on now to number 5. And I am talking about Bride of the Monster. Basically, a mad scientist decides to create his own super race, his own atomic-powered super race. Finally, we got a movie. This is a film by Ed Wood. Also stars Bela Lugosi and Tor Johnson. This would be I've been waiting to get into some Ed Wood. I knew it'd be coming. I was like, oh, I can't wait. This would be his biggest budgeted film he ever would get. Like after this, I mean, and it's pretty low budget. This is pretty cheap. But in context, this is as big as it gets right here. That's what she said. All right, take a drink. Sorry, it's very unprofessional, and I'm not cutting any of this because I'm a lazy podcaster. Oh, sorry. One more. Could have pushed it back. Don't really have a big enough audience to demand me pulling these out on time, but damn it, I have my own schedule, and I intend to keep with it. All right, so anyways, this thing actually wrapped the previous year in 54. However, due to some financial issues from Ed Wood, they couldn't get this thing released until 1955. In fact, during production, they ran out of money too, and he had to go to this meat packing factory owner and to get the money. And the guy agreed to produce his film under 2 conditions. One, that he cast his son and make him the star, the hero of the movie. And 2, he wanted to have an atomic blast at the end of the film. His reasoning was he felt that it was bad. Atomic powered weapons is not a good thing. And he wanted to serve as like a warning, like, put it in there so we can see the dangers of it. But when they put it in, it's funny because it's just like they destroy the monster, the giant octopus, and it's not even a giant octopus. It's a good sized octopus, I guess. I guess it's giant enough. But anyways, they're shooting at it, and then it just explodes into a mushroom cloud. You're like, what the fuck? I don't know. Fun stuff. Anyways, so yeah, that's why that was in there. For anybody asking, like, well, why do you blow up in an atomic blast? Which, essentially would kill everyone around them, but, I guess we're to think, like, well, it was a small mushroom cloud with no radiation from bullets and a octopus. Although I guess we're supposed, since he was trying to create atomic Superman, we can assume that he was an atomic powered octopi. I have no idea. Anyways, another crazy story from this movie. The guy who plays the Russian agent, apparently he was underpaid, and he contacted the Screen Actors Guild, and they came down and shut the production down as well. And Ed Wood had to scramble and try to find the money to pay this guy back, and he ended up selling like a big portion of his ownership to this movie. Which, in the end, I don't know if it was all of it or not, because, I read another place where it said, like, he actually sold everything. So I don't know if it was sold some to this guy and then sold some later to get it, distributed or whatever. Either way, Ed Wood would wind up with no part of this movie at all. In fact, Samuel Z. Arkoff, he would actually cut a deal with him to distribute the movie. And he actually made more money off this movie than Ed Wood. In fact, with the profits that he would make from this movie, he would start American International Pictures, AIP. So, yeah, there you go. This was the last speaking role for Bela Lugosi. He would pass away shortly after this movie. He would be in like 3 other films after this, but one of them it was a silent performance, or his character didn't speak. Of course, one of them was obviously Plan 9 from Outer Space, which, if you remember or seeing, he only shot one scene. And what even a scene? He shot test footage, but he died shortly after that. And then Ed Wood just oh, talk about exploitation. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Talk about exploitation, but he would throw that test footage in his movie and then put Bela Lugosi's name, on the marquee. So even though he's only in it for a couple of minutes, and they had a double do the rest of the movie, Bela Lugosi. But of course, he didn't talk in that movie. And then another person did a film shortly after this, where they'd use like archive footage, I guess, of previous works or whatever. So, but they try to pass it off like it was a new Lugosi performance, I suppose. But either way, this would be the last time you'd hear him, talk on the movie and on the silver screen. Of course, the legend goes that that Ed Wood and his crew broke into a studio and stole the octopus that they used in this movie, but they didn't steal the motor that make it run. And that's why you see a lot of people who are, on top of the octopus, flailing around, and then they're grabbing the tentacles to make it look like, oh no, it's got me. Which I paid homage to. I did a short film called Chris Cage, Modern Day Van Helsing, and it had a scene where my character was in the water being attacked by some kind of creature monster, and it's just a pool noodle with suction cups attached to it. And you can clearly tell it's me with one hand hidden behind this rock in the water, moving the pool noodle, trying to attack myself with it. And yes, it was a definite, homage or ripoff or reference to this movie right here. So there it is. If you're, I'm skipping ahead because I actually had this written down later on, but if you ever seen the movie Ed Wood, which Tim Burton would direct, kind of a biopic about, Ed Wood, but they spent a big portion of it about this movie, Bride of the Monster, and them making it. It's included in that as well, where they steal the octopus and had no motor and everything. However, I was reading, as I kept doing more research, I kept reading other things, and it was like, one source said like, no, that's actually false. They actually went and, they rented it as normal and everything. So it's like, I don't know, who really knows? But either way, that's the story there. I want to believe that they stole it. That just adds more to it, I think, to that no budget mentality of, what, we gotta get this movie made. We're gonna do it, by any means necessary. So, Tor Johnson's character Lobos, I think is his name, if I remember correctly, the mentally challenged assistant to Bela Lugosi. This character would come back. Apparently, there was a sequel of sorts called Night of the Ghouls, and he's in that. And then he would use the character name again, even though it's a different movie and a different character altogether, but just the same name in a movie called The Unearthly. So there's that. Apparently, this is part of what's known as the Kelton, if I'm saying that right, trilogy. So apparently, one of the officers here is Officer Kelton. I didn't even remember that at all. When I read that, I was like, I don't remember anybody's name from this movie. I'm bad about character names. To me, I know the actors, and that's it. Anyways, but apparently he appears not only in this, but he appears in Plan 9 from Outer Space and Night of the Ghouls. So, Wood fans would call this part of the Kelton trilogy. So there you go. This was on Joe Dante's list of worst horror films ever made, which I think makes a lot of people's worst films made list or whatever. This got a lot of bad reviews all around, but the one thing that a lot of people did agree on, that a lot of people was kind of agreeing with, that they could all kind of come to terms on the same page, was Bela Lugosi's performance, which was really good in this, and that should be no surprise. I mean, he's a good actor. You give him good material, which is weird to think this is good material, but it really was a really solid performance. So. Sorry, took a drink. Anyways, apparently during this production, because again Lugosi health issues are really plaguing him at this point, and they were afraid he was going to forget his lines. So Ed Wood, again, kind of the master of one takes or whatever, was like, "We can't risk it. I want to get you cue cards." And of course, Bela Lugosi was kind of insulted by that. He's like, "No, I don't want them." But Ed Wood did it anyways, and they had the cue cards to the side. But Lugosi just refused to look at him. And nailed it, like hit every line perfectly, to the point where after the take, the entire cast and crew gave him like a standing ovation. So again, it's kind of tragic at this point in Lugosi's career. We know now where it's headed. He's going to die shortly, and he's been kind of cast out of the studio system, and at this point he's drug addicted, and just he's making Ed Wood movies, so clearly things aren't going good for him. So to hear a story like that, I don't know, it kind of brings a smile to my face, knowing like even this guy was kind of on the ropes, he was still professional and did his craft well. So love that. Apparently this was Ed Wood's only financially successful film that he would ever do. Again, it didn't make much, but again, it wasn't made for much, so it definitely came out ahead. And apparently, it funded AIP Studios, so there you go. But yeah, this would be the only one that would be successful. Everything after, even though Plan 9 from Outer Space is probably the most notorious film he did, it's this movie that definitely did better, at least at the time. I'm sure Plan 9 made money back now because that's like the midnight show, right? Anyways, so yeah, I talked about the sequel earlier, Night of the Ghouls. Apparently, it kind of had the same issue, but worse. It was completed in 1959, but with so many money issues, it wouldn't get released until 1985. So I guess we'll find out more about that possibly when we get there. By 85, I can't imagine this movie's going to make the top 10, so probably not, actually. We probably won't be hearing about Night of the Ghouls, but either way. So what about this movie? I'm not going to lie, it's not a good movie. But I don't think it's nearly as bad as people make it out to be. Like I've reviewed way worse movies than this on this channel, on this show. So I don't know. Granted, yeah, it's cheap. It's it is what it is. But it's got decent acting. It's not like it's shit across the board. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some people who are kind of stinking to join up, but it's few and far between. Most of them are competent, and this is the age of like B horror films. So it's like I don't know. It's fitting in. It's, it is what it is. I thought, the story was decent-ish. Again, no different than what's already out there. Like, I read one review. Like I said, I always try to find all the facts, and I try to read a handful of reviews just randomly to try to, get a sense of what people were saying back then. And, like, everyone was just like, oh, this is the worst film, and he don't know what he's doing, and every camera setup was right. It's just like, was it? I mean, I don't know. I think it's, like I said, it's better than some shit I've seen. Again, there are some really cheap things about this movie, and yes, there is some very weird choices that were made, but at the same time, to be like, this is like one of the worst movies, I don't see it. Like, I was not bored watching this movie at all, so that's just me. This has a 4.1 on IMDb, so apparently people have disagreed. Which I'm not saying, again, that even that sounds really bad. I don't know, 4 seems like it's probably right for this film. Again, it's not a good movie. I just don't think it's the worst either. But it does have a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Remember that. Again, that's rotten, but just remember 55%. We'll get back to that in a second. So, anyway, so there you go. That's Bride of the Monster. We'll move on. Sorry. Spent more time on Bride of the Monster than I probably should have. But so, going on number 4 now. And I'm talking about Dementia. So basically, this movie it's a silent film. I should mention that off the bat. It takes place in one night, where basically you get this woman who clearly has some kind of mental issue, and we're seeing it through her eyes. So it's very surreal, and it's just kind of showing like her in the in this big city late at night. It's it's not even the big city. She's like in a dangerous part of town, and we're just kind of seeing like what she experiences in this one night or whatever. As I mentioned, this was a silent film, so this was, in an era when clearly we're doing talkies. Like, this ain't the 40s when there was a couple of holdovers. Like, no. Or, sorry, I should say 30s. Where a couple of holdovers. Like, no. This is, silent hasn't been a thing in a while. So, when this thing came out, actually, though, it was initially banned. People thought it was too gruesome. My God, there's a severed hand in this movie that's taken off a dead body. The fact that it's a woman doing these, murders. Was another thing that people were kind of, upset about, and I'll get more on that here in a minute. But yeah, this thing was initial, and then they just said that, I guess another thing was just like, we're in an era of like giant monsters or mad scientists. I mean, goddamn, I just got done doing an Ed Wood movie, so it's like, this is what's going on at the time. So this is a totally different type of horror film to come out, and so it's a little bit more real. It's a little bit more, and it's definitely more of a surreal film. There's some reality there of like just a crazy person who's also dangerous. It's out there, on the streets. And I don't know. So it got banned initially, but it would get re-released. They would actually bring it out 2 years later. And they would kind of re-edit it, make some cuts. And they would basically put voiceover. They had Ed McMahon, which would go on to for the younger crowd, he would go on to be Johnny Carson's sidekick, and he was known for a long time. He was the guy who did the Publishers Clearinghouse. He show up at your house with a big check. You just won $1 million. He was that guy. He did the voiceover for it's called Daughter of Whore, what they would retitle it as. So yeah, that was kind of that. And I mentioned earlier, and again, I'm just speculating on this. But this film scholar was talking about how at this era, this film almost had to be deemed because it definitely looks more film noir, and I would dare say maybe more drama thriller. I mean, there's definitely horror elements to it, but this guy kind of said like this movie almost had to be a horror film because society wasn't really ready for this woman to be getting her revenge like this, like or not getting her revenge, I guess, but just being because again you're seeing the dangers. Like one of the themes here is just like, it's dangerous to be a woman at night in this part of town kind of thing. And sure enough, everyone's creeping up on her. Everyone, everybody is potentially a villain out to harm or, worse, rape, murder this young woman. And I mean, that's clearly the implication a lot of the times in this film. And so to have her, though, the transgression of her fighting back against the patriarchal society. This film scholar said like that was probably one of the biggest reasons why this thing was banned because or was considered a horror film was because you didn't see that in any other genre. The women there fought back, especially to this extreme. So that's almost why they had to be like, oh, this is a horror film. It is what it is. So yeah, again, these aren't really my opinion. I'm just saying this is what this scholar was saying. Apparently, so the director. He was, he wasn't a director prior to this. I think he worked for like a movie theater or like a chain them or something like that, or he ran them. But basically, his secretary, who plays the main girl in this movie, told him about this nightmare she had, and he loved it so much, like he's like, we gotta make a movie about it. And it was initially going to be a short film, but when they started shooting, apparently he liked the way it was going. He's like, you know what, we can stretch this out, and so they made it into which I think it's still under an hour, but basically feature length or whatever or close to it. But yeah, made it bigger or whatever. So of course, one thing I thought was kind of funny because it's the carny in me that loves it was for a publicity stunt when it was released as a Daughter of Whore. They were having the people who worked at the theaters administer medical exams to the people who were buying tickets for this film, saying like they were heart specialists because if you have a weak heart, you are not going to survive Daughter of Whore. Again, I love shit like that. I wish that was still kind of a thing today. Like I really wish, like a part of me was like, I would love to go back to the 50s during the William Castle era, during all these gimmicky type things, and I would love to be a part of that. We don't really have that today, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I like that. This thing got mixed reviews coming out when it came out. I think for obvious reasons. I think I think a silent movie wasn't going to play as well because I don't know if art house was really a thing back then. I mean, I guess it kind of was, but I don't know. I just feel like this was definitely we're in an era of the drive-in starting to become a thing. So it's like, yeah, this ain't really a movie that's going to hold the kids' attention, if you will. So, and again, just the nature of the film, and again, this the violence shown in this thing, I can see why it would turn off some critics. And again, the fact that it's a woman, I guess, doing this in 1955 was probably another thing that was rubbing people the wrong way. So, anyway, so the girl who plays the flower girl in this movie, she was actually married to the guy who played. He was billed as the rich man who wound up being the victim. But they were married in real life, and turns out that the flower girl was also the associate producer of this film. So, and I believe the rich man was also one of the producers as well, or something like that. He was connected somehow. But yeah, that was So everyone kind of small group working together like that. And finally, this is kind of an interesting thing. But I read this. It didn't state where. I gotta assume the South. I'm sorry to be that way. But it said in some territories this film was banned due to the scene in the nightclub where you see an interracial couple dancing. Just couldn't handle it back then, could they? So anyways, there you have it. What I think about this movie, again, I think I had the benefit of knowing it was going to be silent going in. I did read the IMDb plot thing, and it actually says it right there. Like, this movie has no dialogue, so I was like, all right. So I knew going in. I think that may have helped me a little bit. I had no problem with silent films, but I guess, it's a state of mind kind of thing. And if I'm watching this late at night and I'm like, ah, shit, it's a silent film, I'm not ready for it. How I was, and I thought I really liked this movie. I thought it was really good. I liked the realism of it. I liked the perspective. I like the surrealism, the realism and the surrealism of this. The idea that we're seeing it kind of through her lens. What I liked about it was when she pushes the guy off the balcony, he clutches her necklace before he goes over, and when he hits with a splat, she goes down, but she realizes her necklace is gone and it's in his hands, and she's afraid it's going to come back to her. And at this point, there's already a crowd gathering around her. But when you look at them, their faces is kind of blacked out, and I don't know. It was like you're literally living in this woman's nightmare. Like you really would be like like that woman said, it was like her, based on her nightmare. And I feel like it really comes across that this woman clearly is not well, and we're seeing the world through her eyes. It very much reminded me a lot of The Trial, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Directed by Orson Welles, based on the Franz Kafka novel. And I know people throw that word Kafka-esque around, and usually it's more for the metamorphosis and changing into something. But to me, the Kafka-esque of just that surreal surrounding, like in The Trial, even though that one's kind of played for straight, we're not seeing it through a crazy man's head. At least I don't think we are. It's kind of like that's just the way the world is around him. It felt like that, but here we clearly know this girl's crazy. And like I said, it's just, I don't know. I dug it. I thought it was really good. I would recommend it. It's kind of funny because honestly, as Dementia, this movie was not well known to anybody because, again, it was re-edited and released as Daughter of Horror. So anybody who watched it probably saw it as Daughter of Horror. It was one of those things where it wouldn't be until, and I don't know if it's the Criterion people who did it, or if it was just, if it just got released on DVD and they just went cool with it. But they basically released both versions of it, Daughter of Horror and the original Dementia. And that's how people discovered this version of it. In fact, right now you can find it, I believe, on, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if I watched it on Tubi or if I had to go to my site to watch it. My illegal site, my pirate site. And I ain't going to say the name because I don't want to get taken down, so... fuck y'all who support these pay sites. Too damn many of them. I ain't got time for that shit. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent. I liked it. Dementia, I would say check it out. Won't be for everybody, but yeah, really good. It was got a 6.7 on IMDb, which, yeah, seems about right. And 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you have it. That was Dementia. So we're moving on now to our number 3 horror film of 1955. And the winner of the Bronze Skull Award. I am talking about It Came From Beneath the Sea, where basically, due to some atomic blasting, we get a giant octopus, radioactive, who's terrorizing a nearby American city. So this thing, produced by Sam Katzman, starring Faith Domergue, and special effects by Ray Harryhausen. So, boom. I mentioned earlier, this was a double feature with Creature with the Atomic Brain. The title was clearly inspired by the film It Came From Outer Space, which I actually kind of thought it was done by the same people. It was almost like a thematic sequel in a way, but turns out no, not at all. Ray Harryhausen was actually hired because of his work in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which he did great stop motion on that, which he does great on here. Which I think actually, in all honesty, I think this is actually better creature effects on It Came From Beneath the Sea as opposed to The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Apparently, Sam Katzman, being the cheap ass director or producer that he was, only gave Ray Harryhausen enough money that when he made the octopus, he only gave the octopus 6 legs. And was just cleverly hiding behind things so you can never see that it's a 6-legged octopus. Because we all know octopus has 8 legs, hence the name Octo. And I guess Harryhausen actually called it the Six-O-Puss or something like that. Like, he has a nickname he gave it. Because again, it was, only had 6 legs. Anyway, so apparently the director didn't have permission to shoot on the Golden Gate Bridge. Because that's where, the big set piece is, on the Golden Gate Bridge. But he didn't have permission to shoot on it. So what he did was he just threw the camera in the back of a truck and drove up and down the Golden Gate Bridge trying to get all the footage he could. Of course, most of the scenes on there was done on a miniature or whatever. But he did what he could with what little he had. But again, I couldn't notice any difference. I honestly assumed it was all set anyway. So the fact that it was a real Golden Gate Bridge in certain scenes, that kind of blows my mind, actually. Um, so, anyways, Harryhausen would actually team up with the director again. They would do Earth versus the Flying Saucers a little later on. Kind of funny little side note here. Kenneth Tobey, he hits three different branches of the military in three different films. So in The Thing from Another World, he plays an Air Force guy. In The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, he's an Army guy. And here, he's a Navy guy. So there you go, just making his way through each branch there. And finally, this thing was actually shot on a real sub, both above water and underwater. So it's kind of cool, 1955, shooting on a sub. Not too shabby. What I think about this movie, I liked it. I thought it was good. Again, I enjoyed it more than it came from, liked it more than 20,000 the Beach from 20,000 Fathoms. Goddamn. Anyways, I thought it was better than that. I mentioned before in those previous movies that my gripe with these giant monster movies and the kaiju's and all that stuff is the it's like you're building to the city destruction, and they always say that for last. And so you're always like, all right, here we go. Let's get to it. But you got all this build up getting to it. And as a kid, I was always like, and even as an adult to a certain extent, because that was a minor complaint I had with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, was just seeing like, this is a build up. Let's get to it. Well, I just want to see this town get destroyed. But here I didn't feel that way. In fact, I thought that, again, my girl Faith was in the movie, so, I loved her. But no, I thought the story was really solid. It kept your attention. And yeah, I thought it was really good build up to it. And so, I was actually happy to see, the movie play out. Like I didn't just wait for the kill shot. I was like, no, I can hold on. I'll build me, build the suspense for me. I'm cool with it. Let's let the story unfold. And once we got to the destruction, it just made that much better. Love the destruction scene too. I think it played out better than it did on Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I'm gonna quit saying the full title. That's throwing me off. So I say Beast. I thought it played out better though. I thought the destruction scene was a lot better. The fact that we see the tentacle come down and like crush people, love that aspect of it. The ending was a little weak sauce. It was a little anticlimactic. I think they were trying to go for a little bit more tension there, but it's just like dude just swims up, pops the nuke in his head, and they drive off, and boom. I don't know if it's a nuke. I think it's like a rubber torpedo, but they put it in his brain or whatever, and that's how they kill it. But it just seemed like, I don't know. It was no fanfare. Like, there was no build-up. It just happens, and you're like, oh, okay, there it is. But aside from that, minor gripe. Rest movie, very solid. And we get another, there's a weird kind of love triangle in this one, too. Like, it seems almost like the Faith's kind of into the older doctor guy for some scenes, but then, the main guy's kind of pushing Kenneth. He's trying to get some as well, and they eventually hook up. But it's like, yeah, again, we got this love triangle going on once more. I don't know. We're gonna have that happen again in another movie coming up. So I'll be going back to the threesome thing here. So, anyways, there it is. Bronze Skull winner, number 3 film. It Came from Beneath the Sea. So moving on now to the number 2 horror film of 1955, and the winner of the Silver Skull Award. Talking about Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. We got basically it's Abbott and Costello. They meet a mummy. They get a medallion, and they're hoping it all leads to some treasure, hopefully. So this was the final film that Abbott and Costello did for Universal Pictures. In fact, I want to say it's like they did like 28 or 29, something like that, like a high 20s amount of films with them. So kind of an end of an era there. The guy who played Clarice, not to be confused with Karis from the previous Mummy films. This is a different Mummy, Clarice. But apparently, the guy who did that, he was a stuntman / he was a double a lot for other actors. Eddie Parker. And apparently he was the double for Lon Chaney Jr. during his Mummy movies. So it's kind of neat to see, he finally gets the Mummy role himself. He's actually also the double for Bela Lugosi in a couple films, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So Eddie Parker, yeah, kind of a well-known guy during this era. It's Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. However, this mummy is only in 10% of this movie. So kind of interesting to think about that. What I think about this movie, honestly, I didn't like this movie. I was not a fan. It had a couple of funny moments here and there, but by this point, I don't know. Like, I have very limited Abbott Costello. Like I've seen the Colgate Comedy Hour, and I've seen their show. I've seen their bits online. I've Who's on First. I've heard the radio broadcast of that, and seen uh you know different iterations of them doing that. And if you would ask me before, like you big Abbott Costello fan, I'm like yes, they're hilarious, and they are. But I don't know. Like when I watched them meet Frankenstein in that movie, I thought it was just okay. Nothing as special as everybody was making it out to be. But then I get to this one, it's just like, ugh, like it almost became annoying. Their comedy bit, like they did a whole bit where it's almost like they're trying to do the "Who's on First" thing, where Costello picks up. He has like three different digging utensils. It's a couple shovels, like a shovel, a spade, and a pick. And he's like, take your pick. And he grabs, Abbott grabs the shovel. He's like, here's my pick. He's like, that's your pick? He goes, that's my pick. He's like, that's a shovel. He's like, yeah, it's my pick. He's like, no. And they do this thing, and it's just, they're trying to go for, but it's not funny. It's not landing. And I feel like that was the big thing throughout a lot of this, which is, it was stupid slapstick. And I don't know, that's my big thing. Like, I'm not big on the dumb slapstick. Like, I like their wordplay is usually what I like. Like when I think of Abbott Costello, I know Costello is known for doing wacky pratfalls and whatever, and there is slapstick involved in their comedy. But for me, it was always their wordplay, and it was not in this movie. Like this movie was just bad. It just was not funny. There was a lot more going on. I will say that I was never bored with this movie because there is a shit ton. I mean, the plot is crazy. You got two different, like they're kind of caught in the middle, and you got like this group that's like worships Clarice and trying to bring him back. But you get this other group that's just trying to rob the tomb, I think. And so it's like, you got a lot of different, layers to this thing going on. And there's so many mishaps. And, at one point, we got two different people dressed up as the mummy along with Clarice. So you get three mummies on screen. It's just wackiness. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. Sorry, excuse me. But I'm just saying, overall, I couldn't get into it. And I don't know. Like, the more I watch it, I don't like Abbott. He's a dick. Like, he's constantly just shitting on Costello. Almost like that's the bit, but it's just like, I don't know. There's a better way to do that than just be a constant dick. Like, be buddies for a lot of it, and then dick out on him every now and then. Get like a Jerry Seinfeld, George Costanza thing. Like, there are times where Jerry's being a dick to George, but you know what? Not always. And they're friends. Here, you're like, why are you guys even friends? Like, that's all they do is like, all right, I don't know. I don't know. Wasn't my movie. Didn't care for it. Yeah. Abbott Costello Meet the Mummy, you could probably skip it. I'm not gonna lie, like I was so excited when we got into this era because I mean that's all I heard is like how great these, Abbott Costello Meet the Monster movies were, and I was so pumped. And then I get to them, I'm like, this ain't really that good. So the fact that this is probably the last one we're doing, in fact it is the last one we're doing, yeah, I'm cool with it. We can definitely get rid of these. So that's just my opinion. I'm a part of this entire academy, so that's why it's so high on the list. Anyways, so moving on now, we go into our number one horror film of 1955 and the winner of the Golden Skull Award. Talking about Diabolique. So basically, you get this guy who's a principal, and the dude's hated in this school, anyways, but not more hated than by his wife and his side chick. Like he has a side chick. He's open about too. Like he's not trying to hide it. Like he's that much of a dick in this movie. He's just like, nope, I'm fucking you both. And they decide to team up to kill him. I think they had the perfect plan, So this is a French film. Turns out that Hitchcock actually wanted to make this movie, and I guess he went to go option the book because it's based on a novel. And unfortunately, he because the novel is She Who Was No More is the name of it. And he went to go, get the option for it. However, he missed out by literally an hour or so. Like the other director scooped it up before he can get to it. And I don't know this director's name. He has a weird Clausewitz, his last name or something like that. I can't do it. Anyway, but I'll just refer to him as director. But yeah, he kind of scooped it out from underneath him. In the book, they actually kind of had and then I guess when he missed out on this one, he would go on to do Psycho. Was kind of I guess the next movie he was going to fall back on. So I mean, it worked out for him. It worked out, for everybody involved. So there's no hard feelings. Apparently, there's a couple of differences from the book to the movie. In one, the wife and the mistress, which I referred to the wife as Vera. That's the actress's name, and the mistress was Simone. I don't know their last names. I don't make sure I pronounce it. In fact, the wife is actually married to the director, so she has the same weird last name he has. Anyways, so but in the book they were lesbians, and I guess they just cut that completely. They're just like it's 1955 and you can't have that. And also in the book, the killers get away with it, which that was something you didn't really get a lot in these movies because that's kind of the whole thing. Like, oh no, you got to have a you got to teach a lesson. There's got to be a moral at the end. You can't let the bad guys get away with it. So yeah, so there's the big differences there. Uh, Apparently though, so the guy, it's the director cast his wife, and I guess like he went all out to like make her look like constantly like lighting her, but like not lighting Simone. Like he was just like, "Oh, you're fine, don't worry about it." But her, he made sure like she got her makeup done properly and kind of paid more attention to her on set, which would start to kind of drive this wedge between Simone and the director because they worked together on a previous film too, so they were friends going into this thing, but by the end, not so much. This thing was both critically and financially successful. In fact, the few bad reviews it did get was people who were kind of complaining that it was just too dark in nature. Like they were more upset by like how far this film went and how disturbing it was, as opposed to like they're like it's not a bad movie, but just my god. And so it's just I don't know, it's kind of interesting that that's where they're going with their bad reviews. Which again that's a sign of good movies. If if your bad reviews are basically just pointing out like how horrific this horror film is. Well, there you go. This thing is often compared to Hitchcock. It's very Hitchcockian, and yeah, I mean, I can definitely see where people are drawing those comparisons. Kind of a weird bit of news on this one. The main actress, Vera, she would die 5 years later of a heart attack, which is the way her character dies in this movie. So, one of those fucked up kind of movie curse things, which there's no curse to this movie, but it's just like, if this would have been on The Exorcist or The Omen, they would have been like, oh yeah, it's cursed, but this thing would actually get remade 3 times in America. We get remade as I think a couple was like TV movies. One was Reflections of Murder. Another one's called House of Secrets, and then finally it was done as a Diabolique. I believe that had Sharon Stone in it, if I'm not mistaken. Came out in the late '90s. Taking a drink. Alrighty. So apparently the director was always kind of chewing out Simone in this film, saying that she was playing a character wrong, and he felt that because there was a big twist at the end of this movie, he felt like she was like by her performance she was already kind of hinting at and giving it away, and so when he was constantly yelling at her, and at one point he's like, I should never let you read the ending of this script, so just kind of picking at her for that, which is like I don't know. If you thought that was going to be an issue, you should have done it in the first place. And I feel like honestly, he was just kind of overcompensating because I think maybe he probably liked her, but the fact he had Vera on set, he was probably like, oh, I gotta make it look like I don't. I don't know. That's just my own personal view of it, but either way, it didn't help matters on set. Apparently, Hitchcock was a huge fan of this movie, though, so no ill will towards it. Missing out on the option to do it. So he was a big fan. In fact, I actually read that the guys who wrote this. I'm guessing I don't know. Like I said, they all have weird French names. But the people who wrote this movie or wrote the book, when they found out that Hitchcock liked their other one, but was upset that he missed out doing this one, they went ahead and wrote their next novel with Hitchcock in mind, and then they went ahead and like personally said, "Here, we want you to make it." The novel is called From Among the Dead. And the movie would go on to become Vertigo. So, and of course, we know he would go and direct that, and it'd be successful. So there you go. Apparently the actress Simone, the actress, she didn't know how to drive. So anyways, that's why in this movie you never see her drive. It's always Vera driving them. So there you go. That's why. Turns out, so I guess the director was constantly butting heads with Simone on screen, and Vera was constantly kind of playing the vulnerable one, I guess is the best way to say it. Kind of I'm caught in the middle. Oh no. Feel sorry for me. That a lot of the cast and crew said that they were almost mirroring the relationship between the principal, his wife, and the mistress in the movie. So it was almost like a life imitating art kind of thing. Yeah, which again it kept getting worse and worse. It's one of those things where apparently the movie was only supposed to be for like 8 weeks, and that was the contract that Simone signed. But apparently there's some kind of clause in there because she was under the impression she's only doing this for 8 weeks. She actually set up. She's a stage actress as well, so she already set up like a gig after this. She was going to do this play after this. So when 8 weeks come and go, and they're still behind schedule, they would push on for another 8 weeks. The problem was when she found out she was not getting paid for the additional work, and apparently it was some kind of clause in her contract. I guess she didn't read it closely or whatever, and she tried to back out. They said they would sue her and get their money out of her, and so she had to stick around. But apparently it caused tension between her and the director. I guess with that it would cause tension between her and Vera as well. And then when it came time to do her play, I guess apparently because they were at odds, the director wouldn't let her out early or change the schedule for her. So like she would either miss rehearsals or she would have to like go to like these late rehearsals and do either by herself or whatever. And she would eventually make it to the play, but I guess it was hell trying to get everything set up and everything worked out. So yeah, it was just one of those things where it was just like, God damn, this dude sounds like a dick. And then finally, kind of an interesting little side note here. It says that apparently this is a film that inspired William Castle to change the way he approached making movies. And I don't quite get that because like this is a sophisticated horror thriller that's just so well made, and like William Castle's known for doing gimmicky movies. So it's like I don't know what like it just seems funny to me. And I'm not trying to shit talk William Castle because I love William Castle. I love William Castle movies. I can't wait to do them when we get to them. But it's just like I don't know. It's like if Tom Wiseau was like, I was inspired by Spielberg when I made The Room. It's like what? In what way? Like well, I don't know. Again, I mean, it works out. I guess William Castle, he's very successful, but it's just like, really? Like you saw this movie and you're like, all right, I'm gonna do the Tingler now. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. Anyway, so what I think about this movie, I fucking love this movie. This movie just deserves to be number one. That deserves that Golden Skull Award. I actually only watched this recently for the first time, and fell in love with it then. Then when I rewatched it for this, I was loved doing it. This movie again, I think because it is that Hitchcock thriller vibe, and again, I don't think that's what the guy was going for. I think he had his own style, just happens to be very similar. But I love that thing. I will say the only kind of downfall for me was I knew the twist going into it. I watched Bravo, and this has been years ago, like in the early 2000s or so, but they did their top 100 scariest movie moments of all time. And the moment they chose from this movie was the twist. And it's like, why? Why? I don't know. So as I'm watching this movie, I was like, oh, this is that movie. This is Diabolique. And I was like, oh, okay, I already know this dude. I'm sorry, I'm gonna ruin it for you. You guys haven't seen it. Click off now. But I was like, oh, you're on a show. Okay, yeah. So when it shows a guy, they say the guy's dead. Like, well, you're not. I know how this ends. This guy comes back at the end. He's not dead. This is all set. And I mean, I didn't know it was a setup. That's all I knew was the fact that this guy wasn't dead. Because I saw the scene. That's the scene they picked was him rising up out of the bathtub. But as I'm watching it, I'm putting it together like, yeah, he's probably working with the other girl. And sure enough, that's exactly what it was. Simone, that's the whole thing. They're trying to get rid of Vera and get her money. So anyway, so upon, watching this, that was the only thing. But even knowing the twist, this movie was damn good. Again, it's subtitled. I hate that we kind of... that's what my main definition between a fan of film and a fan of movies. A lot of people love movies, but they don't love film. And I feel like one of the criteria there is like, you gotta be willing to read subtitles, broaden your mind a little bit. And I feel like as soon as you say no to that, then you're not a film fan, you're a movie fan. Watch your Transformers, watch your Fast and Furious, I don't give a fuck. And I feel like, people missed out. My uncle, love my uncle. He's no longer with us. But he was like that. He refused to, read subtitles. He hoped they had a dub option. If they didn't, he just wouldn't watch it. And I just remember I would be telling him about movies because he's like, I got a lot of what I love from movies from that guy. And we would constantly, I'd be telling him about, I just saw this movie, blah blah blah. And he'd be like, well, great, I'm back now. You can't watch it. It's like it's subtitled. Is it dub? No. He's like, oh, I guess I ain't watching. It's just like you missed out on so many good movies, and I feel like this will fall into that category of like don't be that person. Watch it, read it. I remember the first time I watched a subtitle movie. It was actually Passion of the Christ, and I didn't really read it because I clearly not to be an asshole. I knew the story, right? But it was shortly after that when I watched it. Everybody like I tell people I watched it and they're like, oh yes, you read it. Like, yeah, I read it. I didn't read shit, but it was short after that I was out on my own, and that was when I first started getting really big into DVDs. And whenever I had the Ring, I went out and got Ringu and watched it, and had didn't have dubbed, it was subtitle only, but I really wanted to see it, so kind of forced myself to read it. And then I started watching more films, and it just started branching out from there, especially J-horror. I got really big into J-horror there for a minute, and so I wanted to see these movies everyone's talking about, and so I've kind of forced myself to just learn to read it, speed up with it. And again, once you do it, it don't take that long. It's not like it's going to be a thing you have to master in a year. No, it's like you get 2 or 3 movies on your belt, you're good. I'm on the other side thing. I'm sorry. We're talking about Diabolique. So anyway, I love this movie. Another aspect I like about this movie is like the ambiguous ending that they kind of hint at. There's a supernatural element. So early on, because again, kind of going through the plot, when they think they've killed, the principal, and then they go to look for the body, it's gone, and you're like, oh shit. And so it's like, is he dead? Is he alive? Is he a spirit? Because now there's sightings of him. One kid used a slingshot and he broke a window in the school, and so the principal, who's supposed to be dead or missing at this point, the kid's doing these chores, and they're like, well, why are you doing chores? Like, who told you to do this? And he's like, oh, the principal. And they don't believe it. And he gets punished for it, right? And so they take a class photo, and the principal shows up in a window in the back. And of course, they search, they can't find him, and now it's like, oh shit, like it's this guy, he's he's coming back from the dead or whatever. And so that's kind of and again, I've seen the spoilers, so I already knew this was bullshit, but that's they're trying to make you think like, well, maybe there's a ghost. So in the movie, he pops out of the bathtub, she dies of a heart attack, and then of course him and Simone get caught by the detective, and they're arrested and taken away. So as they're closing the school down and transferring the kids, the main kid, he has a slingshot back. And they're like, well, how'd you get a slingshot back? And he's like, oh, Vera gave it to me. And you're like, oh, shit. She's dead. Like, she's legit dead. And so I like that. I don't know. There's something about that maybe we didn't need it. Maybe some people were going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, we didn't have to have that. I like that. I don't know. For some reason, that clicked with me. Anyway, so to wrap this up, IMDb gave this an 8.1. Definitely deserves it. And a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, earlier I told you to remember that, Bride of the Monster got 55%. That's the reason I said that was because Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy got 25%. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, that's a worse movie than Bride of the Monster, even though if you ask most people, they'd be like, oh no, Bride of the Monster sucks. And Abbott and Costello are great. Not according to Rotten Tomatoes, it didn't. But anyways, I digress. So anyways, that is the number 1 horror film from 1955. So, to kind of do a quick recap and reiterate, the year of 1955 in horror. Our inducting class into the Horror Hall of Fame include Ralph Bellamy, Ingrid Bergman, Lon Chaney Jr., Sam Katzman, Mantan Moreland, and Edgar G. Ullman. And then our 7 films that we ranked: Creature of the Atomic Brain, Cult of the Cobra, Bride of the Monster, Dementia. Our Bronze Skull Award went to It Came from Beneath the Sea. The Silver Skull Award went to Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. And our Gold Skull Award went to Diabolique. So there you have it. That was the year in horror for 1955. On behalf of the Retro Horror Academy, my name's Daniel Richardson. Thank you for watching, and yeah, you're dismissed.